Hello, I'm Lexi Ruba, and here are my group members.
I'm Ruth.
I'm Living.
I'm Rahal.
And we analyzed a data set about the US border crossings.
So we did our research on the US border crossing data. So this data is the sum of all the non-airport border crossing entry into the US from the year of January 1996 to the February of 2020. This is a 24-year period of data collection by the Bureau of Transportation Statistics. This data is used by the government officials to make decisions regarding traffic jam, roads and things like that, so that it could prepare them for the time when a lot of people are coming into the US. This data contains 7 variables, such as the port name, port code, the border, whether it's the bordering Canada or US, the type of transportation measures that they're using when they came into the US, and the time. Yeah.
All right, and then our abstract proposal for our project, we are talking about the US border crossings from January 1996 to February 2020. There's 3 aspects that we're going to look at. The first one is if the number of people crossing the borders was trending up or down over the years or not. The second aspect is the number of people who cross the border in areas and what months the highest crossings occur. And the third aspect is based on the data set, Hispanics tend to have a higher crossing into the US than Canadians. And by comparing how Canadians and Hispanics cross borders, do the different modes of vehicle use have a significant impact on this tendency? Most variables in our data set were categorical with only a few numerical variables. There are over 350,000 samples. Scientists could make this better by including more samples. So we will be including all samples in our analysis. We eliminated 3 variables, the port name, state, and port code, because they have little significance with our aspects we're trying to test. So we will only be using the value, border, measure, and date, since they have a higher significance.
So this is our data dictionary, and the names that are bolded ones are the ones that are also found in our clean data set. So the port name is the name of the port in which the border is crossed at, and the state is the place where the port is located at. The port code is a unique code or number given to the port. And the border, it tells us whether it's bordering a US-Canada border or a US-Mexico border. The date is the time when the people that are coming into the US crossed in. And the measure, it tells us the type of transportation that those people used when they came into the US. And the value is the number of people that have crossed the border into the US. And at the top, we can see our cleaned data set and our original data set. On our cleaned data set, we have five variables: the border, which tells us whether it's Canada or Mexico, the month, the year, and the type of vehicle that they use, and the value, the number of people that have come into the US. And this is the original data set. It has 7 variables: the port name, state, port code, border, data, measure, and value. We have removed some of the variables from here. We'll talk more about that when we talk about setting our data set. And setting our data set, we first made a copy of our data set, and then we further divided the date column into 3 different columns: the month, day, and year. And then we further divided the year column into year and time. We removed the time variable because we thought that it isn't important in answering any of our research questions. And then we further also removed other for different variables, the port name, state, port code, and day. And then for convenient purposes, we shorten the name of the US-Canada border into Canada and the US-Mexico border into Mexico. And finally, we saved this into our CSV file.
And then I'll talk a little bit about our graph and model. So for our graphs, we uploaded the packages from RStudio, Dipler, Tidier, ggplot, tidytext, rpart, and rpartplot. And then we uploaded the clean data set and named it border crossing for the purposes of the graph. To answer our first question, which was has the number of people crossing increased or decreased over the years? We created this ggplot. And as you can see, Mexico numbers dropped from 4 million to less than 2 million after 2000. And Canada numbers dropped from 2 million to less than 1.5 million after 2000. And although we see a decrease after the 2000s, we can see in recent years that those numbers start to increase. For our second proposal question, we wanted to see which months were the highest, had the highest crossings for both Canada and Mexico. Canada, we can see August is the highest month and February is the lowest. And for Mexico, it's pretty steady throughout. And then for our third proposal question, we wanted to see which mode of transportation was used the most for both Mexico and Canada. And as you can see, both Mexico and Canada use personal vehicle passengers and personal vehicles. The only difference is that Mexico uses pedestrians and there is no record for pedestrians in Canada. And then we'll move on to our CART and random forests. Here you can see that everything besides personal vehicles and passengers has a lowest range count of 6,260 people. And then people who cross from Canada to the US border, they have a value of 49,000 people. If they use a personal vehicle, then they have 260,000 people. And if it occurred in or after 2007, it has a count of 451,000 people. Now, if the crossing was from the Mexico to US border before 2007 and the personal vehicle passengers was used, the count is 682,000 people. And our findings. For our first aspect, we found that the number of people crossing at both borders was downtrending. Even though in recent years we see the trend starting to increase, the numbers are still lower than the early 2000s. The increase after 2012 can be explained by Obama's executive action on immigration reform, allowing illegal immigrants temporary work permits. And then for our second aspect, the highest month that people are crossing over from Canada was August. June and July also had relatively high numbers. And winter was the lowest number of people crossing for Canada. And for Mexico, the numbers were pretty stable. So we can conclude that the crossings are not dependent on the time of the year. And then for our third aspect, we could see from our graph that both prefer choosing personal vehicles and passengers of personal vehicles. For Mexico, pedestrians may be a higher choosing for Hispanics because that's usually the common mode for illegal immigrants. And that is all.